Pork, the other white meat. That's one of the things that we like, right? Absolutely. Well, let's understand pork a little bit. Used to be the case that pork was cooked till it's done, done, done. Why? Because trichinosis, that little pesky parasite, used to be a big factor in pork. A lot of it had to do with what they were feeding the pigs. Well, once the USDA and the FDA step in and took care of that little problem, it made it better for us, which means that pork is now very, very closely related to our red meats, which means we cook it very similarly. Pork usually doesn't have the same amount of marbling that our red meats will have, or the fat running throughout the meat fibers, but it will have a little bit of fat on the top there. The tough thing about pork is it's the hardest meat for your body to digest, which means that it's not a good diet food. It's also a little bit higher in fat content, like the red meats. So with pork, we really look for a nice, even color, a kind of a pinkish hue almost. We want it to be nice and bright, which means that it's very moist, which means that it's wholesome. Now, unlike beef, it's not graded. It's just inspected for wholesomeness, just like chicken and things like that. We want to make sure that when we buy pork that there's no discolorations in it. You might see red spots here and there. That's something that you want to stay away from. Okay, that's basically means that those little spots in there have kind of snuck in there, or that there was some deformity in the animal, and you just want to stay away from that. Even though it may not hurt you if you do cook it, as a general rule, just try to stay away from the little discolorations in there. With pork, you usually cook it, just like I said, with meat, usually to about a medium or so, which is probably about 140 degrees. You don't want to go too much over that, because then the pork gets very, very tough, and it also gets very dry. So remember these rules when you're working with pork, and also remember that apples go very well with pork.